So close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. An entire continent filled with fear. Millions of soldiers living in muddy trenches. Families destroyed. Empires collapsing. And all of this because the world failed to control its ambitions. Hello everybody, my name is Shreyash Namdeo and today I'm going to explain the First World War. A war that changed humanity's history forever. The First World War was fought between 1914 to 1918. It was not just a war between armies, it was a war of ideologies, ego, power, and revenge. In this video, I will explain the deep rooted cause of the First World War, the Sarajevo crisis, which acted as the spark, and the results of the war, including the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations. This explanation is detailed, conceptual, and exam oriented. So listen carefully. Now, starting off with the causes of the First World War. The first cause being nationalism, the most dangerous cause. Let us begin with the most powerful and dangerous cause, nationalism. Nationalism means extreme loyalty and devotion to one's own nation, often combined with the belief that one's nation is superior to others. In the early 20th century, nationalism in Europe was not healthy patriotism, it was aggressive and explosive. Countries did not just love their nation, they hated other nations. Every nation wanted political dominance, military respect, and international superiority. Germany is the best example, of course. After its unification in 1871, Germany grew rapidly, industrially, militarily, and economically. But Germany felt it was not treated as an equal by older powers like Britain and France. This created resentment and anger. Now, let's talk about ethnic nationalism, especially in the Balkans. In the Balkan regions, many Slavic people lived under the rule of Austria Hungary. Serbia believed that all Slavs should unite into one independent nation. This idea directly threatened Austria Hungary. So, nationalism created fear in Austria Hungary, aggression in Germany, and revolutionary ideas in Serbia. Instead of uniting, Europe became a continent of enemies, each nation emotionally prepared for a war. Thus, nationalism acted like a fuel waiting for a spark. Hold up, guys, let me drink some water. So, you understand, right? Germany was not really the root of all cause, but it was a big part of it. And as you know about the history of Germany, the Hitler and stuff, that happens in the later times. But from this, we get to know that the German people were nationalists from the very beginning. Now, it was not just the German people, it was about the way they were raised, or the way they thought, or how they were put down by the older powers from, from being treated equally. Now, that sure created tensions. Now, as you can see, that small part of the world, Europe, that basically run the entire world around those times. I mean, there was America, but other than that, there was nothing challenging the power of Europe back then. Asia, Africa, South America, and some parts of USA were also parts of European colonies. It was really not that much about any other power other than Europe. And now Europe itself was starting to crumble, and the cracks were seen really good. Now let's just move on to imperialism, the struggles for colonies. Now let's move on to the second major cause, imperialism. Imperialism means extending control over foreign territories by establishing colonies. In the late 19th and the early 20th century, European powers were obsessed with colonies. You may ask why. Because colonies provided raw materials for industries, and as you know, there was industrial revolution happening during that time, and raw materials were really needed at that time. Another some things that were needed during the industrial revolution in the Europe was cheap labor that they could find across the world. And another thing that was needed was markets to sell these finished goods. Now, you see, South Africa provided a lot, not really just South Africa, the entire continent of Africa provided them not only with cheap labor, not only raw materials, but also a market to sell all the finished goods. And not just Africa, it was the entirety of Asia too. Not entirely. Russia had its own ways where it was developing in itself, not making that many colonies. And Russia wasn't really Russia, it was Soviet Union that combined a lot of countries from Europe. Now see, India was under the British rule. Some parts of China were also under European powers. And when the First World War started, they actually made use of Japan acting and trying to invade China, and they established spheres of influence over the weakened China. Now let's just stick to the initial topic. And after the market to sell these finished goods, these people needed political prestige. Now you see, political prestige is a thing where no matter how much you have it, you're gonna want more of it. That is why it was a really big cause. Now, Britain has the largest empire in the world. France also controlled vast territories. Germany, however, entered imperialism very late. By the time Germany was ready, Africa was already divided, Asia was already controlled. Germany felt cheated and humiliated. This created intense rivalry between Germany and Britain and Germany and France. Imperialism turned economic competitions into international hostility. Colonial conflicts increased, mistrust, jealousy, and suspicion. Thus, imperialism made peace almost impossible because every nation believed expansion was necessary for survival. Now, you see, it wasn't really the fault of the people or the leaders. It was just the situations that were getting tense day by day because of how everything was controlled and how survival meant expansion. If you didn't invade someone, they would invade you. There was no actually playing fair in this point. You just had to extend your borders, sell your finished goods, get raw materials, get your political prestige in line, get get cheap labor. It was all using of each other. As you see, the morals during these times and humanity really, really, really didn't do its work. It was really bad at that times. The workers were overused. There was no minimum wage. It was really horrible, guys. Now, another cause that we need to move to was armament race, militarism. This brings us to the third cause, the armament race. It is also called as militarism, that I just said. Militarism means giving extreme importance to military power, as it sounds in its name. European nations believed that if my army is stronger, my nation is safer. Which, to some extent, if you think about it, is true. If a country's army is stronger, it doesn't really need to fight to protect itself from other countries' invasions. It is just the fear that lives among the nations that will prevent them from attacking them. So, as a result, armies were expanded, new weapons were manufactured, and war became normalized. Now, this would have really fucked up the pieces The peace during that time would have been gone. Now, the most famous example is the naval race between Britain and Germany. Britain had the world's strongest navy. Germany began building powerful battleships called dreadnoughts, and each country tried to overproduce the other, outpower the other. This created fear, suspicion, and paranoia. Nations started believing if war is inevitable, it is better to strike first. Thus, Europe turned into a giant arms warehouse where one small incident could and trigger a massive explosion. Now, another cause was the division of Europe into alliances. Now, let's understand how Europe was divided. To protect themselves, countries formed military alliances. These alliances promised if one country is attacked, the others will help. Two major alliances emerged. First, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria Hungary, and Italy, because of their similar thought processes, believe. And then the second was the Triple Entente, Britain, France, and USA. Britain, France, and Russia, actually. On paper, alliances were meant for protection. In reality, they made big wars bigger and deadlier. Okay, now a local conflict could now turn into a continental war. Alliances removed diplomacy and replaced it with automatic war reactions. Europe was now split into two hostile camps, staring at each other like loaded guns. Nationalism was the fuel, imperialism was the rivalry, and militarism was the weapon. And alliances were the trigger system. All that was needed now was a spark. Now, just I'll give you a moment to think about all this. What do you think was happening in the people's brains when they were going through all this? It would have been so horrible because you see, even a small thing is now going to trigger a war. The military is really active. The people are heavily involved with the machinery, etc. People are being overused, and it's overall a really bad incident. You know, I just want. I'm just going to. I'm just going to end the first part of the video on the note for you to think about it. About the people at that time during the during when the tensions were high. What would you do if you were a person living on the borders when you could never predict a war? Like it's not about what you think it is. You just need to give it some time. Give it a thought. What would you do?